take a look at number 1. It says multiply and model. Rewrite each expression as a multiplication sentence with decimal factors. The first one is done for you. So they actually want you to take 2 fractions. In this case, it's 1/10 times 1/10. Multiply it out. So it's 1 times 1, which is 1, and 10 times 10, which is 100. So you ended with 1/100th. Then we're going to put that 1/100th into a decimal form. Because it's 100th, it has to have 2 spots after the decimal. It's 1/100th, and so it's 0.01. Now again, remember we did this in calendar math, we've done this in module 1, so it's kind of pulling up what you know and showing you how it all connects with the fractions that you've been working on. When we look at B, we have 4/10 times, I can't get that 0 to right, there we go, times 3/10. So 4 times 3 is 12. 10 times 10 is 100. So we have 12/100ths, and when we put that in decimal form, it's 12/100ths. I'm not concerned about the pictures. Don't even worry about writing those pictures down for me right now. We just need to work through this process. Here, I have 1/10, and now what they've done is they've given me this decimal, and I need to put that into a fraction form so that I can multiply it. So 1/10 times, now since there's only 1 spot at the decimal, we're going to make that tenths on the bottom, so it's 14/10. So we've kind of converted it into an improper fraction. 1 times 14 is 14. 10 times 10 is 100. So 14/100ths is 0.14. So I want you to go ahead and try D. 6/10 times, and I'm going to give you a hint here, there's a 10 on the bottom of that. Did you write 17/10? That's where you should have been writing. So now we're going to multiply across. 100 on the bottom. Go ahead and multiply that 6 times 17. I got 102. I hope you did. So I have 102/100ths. Now this is like when we have tenths, there can only be 2 spots after the decimal for hundredths. So we are going to write 20, put in that decimal point, and then make that a whole number because we actually have over 100. We have 1 and 2 hundredths. Let's go ahead and move on to number 3. Started with lesson 17 today. I want to review what we learned when we were using decimals. So if you remember, if we had the decimal place here, and then we have 3 spots, this is the tenths, right, with the TH on it. This is the hundredths with that TH on it. And this is the thousandths with that TH on it. So if I have 1/10, then in fraction form, it's 1/10. Then I can have 2/10, 3/10, so on, up into 9/10. And when I have 9/10, if you recall, put yourself back into that module 1. Here's our decimal place. So we have 9/10. In order to go to 10/10, we have to move it over and have a 1.0. So then 10/10 is really 1 with that decimal point behind it. So if I have 11 tenths, it's really 1 and 1/10, because 10 goes into 11 one time and there's 1 left, or it's 1 and 1/10. So it's important to remember those things that we learned in the beginning of the school year, because we're actually going to put them into play during this lesson. Okay, now this is more practice of the same thing. So we're going to talk about A, B, and C. Then I'm going to have the video stop. You're going to practice D, E, F, G, H, I, and then we'll check them at the end. So again, we have a whole number. Now, this is something that I can't remember if we've talked about yet. I think we have, but if you remember, I told you a long time ago that behind every whole number, there's a decimal point that you don't see. We don't need to write it because it's a whole number. Well, under that same whole number, there's always a fraction underneath it. It's a 1. So this is actually 5/1 times 7/10. 5 times 7 is 35. 1 times 10 is 10. So I have 35 tenths. Now remember, when I'm writing that, tenths means I can only have one place after the decimal, so the 3 goes in the front to make it a whole number. Looking here, I have 5 tenths, times 7 tenths. 5 times 7 is 35. 10 times 10 is 100. Because I have 100th here, I can only have 2 points after the decimal, so it's 0.35 right there. And here I have 5/100ths times 7/10 all the way over here. 5 times 7 is 35. And 100 times 10 is 1,000. So 1,000 means it's going to have 3 spots after the decimal. So 35 will go here, and then we'll fill that in to show thousands. So go ahead, stop, or pause this video, practice D through I. See how far you can get. Okay, so I went ahead and did the first one. I have 6/1, because remember that's a whole number, so we're going to make it into a fraction, times 3 tenths. 6 times 3 is 18. 1 times 10 is 10, so I have 18 tenths. Because it's tenths, I can only have that one spot after the decimal, so it's 1.8. Here I have 6 tenths times 3 tenths. So I have 18 again. Only 10 times 10 is 100. So since I can have 2 spots after the decimal, my answer is 0.18 or 18 hundredths. And here I have 6 hundredths, because I have 2 spots over the decimal, times 3 tenths, because that's 1 spot past the decimal. 6 times 3 is 18. 100 times 10 is 1,000. So I have 18 thousandths. Remember, thousandths tells us we're going to have 3 spots after the decimal, so I'm going to put 18 and a 0 in there. Now when we go on to here, 1 and 2 tenths. That 2 tenths is what we're going to put on the bottom, 12 on the top, times 4, and when we have a whole number, we put a 1 underneath it. 12 times 4 is 48 over 10. So this is 4.8. 1 and 2 tenths would be 12 tenths again. This time it's times 4 tenths. 12 tenths times 4 tenths is 48 over 100, which is 48 hundredths. Here is 12 100ths. What, 18? Where did I write 18 for? 12 100ths times 4 tenths. 12 times 4 is 48, and 100 times 1,000 is, I meant 100 times 10 is 1,000. So that's 0.048. Okay, so moving on, let's go ahead and do 3. We are not going to do 4 today. We're just going to go to 3. So, and on homework, same thing. You don't have to do 4, but you do need to do 3. A Boy Scout has a length of rope measuring 0.7 meters. He uses 2/10 of that rope. So 0.7 times 2/10. Go ahead and pause me, solve it, and then we can start again. Okay, so we're going to write 7/10 times 2/10. 7 times 2 is 14. 10 times 10 is 100. And when I convert that back into a decimal, he has 14 100ths of the rope. Meters of the rope are in a knot. Meters. There we go. I absolutely want you to give 4 a try, but it's not necessary. And we'll go on. Good luck. Get your homework done tonight, and we'll discuss it again tomorrow.